The neon arena. Neo-Jakarta, a sprawling metropolis drenched in eternal rain, flickered under the weight of its neon glow. Above the grimy streets and decaying megastructures, the logo of the corporeum hovered like a digital specter, its holographic brilliance masking the rot beneath. Once a beacon of humanity's technological triumphs, Neo-Jakarta was now a festering wound, its underbelly home to the discarded and the forgotten. The outer sectors, a chaotic labyrinth of shantytowns and industrial ruins, had become a haven for the desperate. Resources were rationed, opportunities scarce, and dreams of escape little more than fantasy. Yet, amidst the despair, rumors of salvation persisted, whispered tales of the neon arena. The arena promised freedom and wealth beyond imagination, a path to transcend the misery of the outer sectors. But the price was steep and the rules simple: survive. No one knew who ran the arena, but those who entered either emerged as legends or vanished forever. For K. Draven, a former bounty hunter, he had spent years hunting rogue replicants, synthetic humans deemed illegal by the corporeum. Once celebrated for his skill, Cade was cast aside when the corporeum's policies shifted. Now, he lived a hollow existence, drowning in cheap liquor and haunted by memories of those he'd hunted and those he'd spared. One rainy night, Cade stumbled into his apartment, its dim light barely holding the shadows at bay. On his counter sat a black envelope, sleek and pristine, marked with a glowing red sigil. He hesitated before opening it, his instincts sharpened by years of danger. Inside was a single card, its holographic text shifting like liquid light. You have been chosen. The neon arena awaits. Face your fate at dawn, Sector 9. Cade's lips curled into a bitter smile. Looks like my luck's run out, he muttered, pocketing the card. Dawn Sector 9 was a graveyard of industry, its towering factories reduced to rusted husks. The air was thick with the smell of oil and ozone, and the ground shimmered with puddles of toxic rainwater. Cade arrived to find dozens of others gathered in the sprawling ruins. The contestants were as varied as the city itself. Mercenaries with augmented limbs stood alongside scavengers, clutching homemade weapons. Corporate assassins in sleek armor exchanged wary glances with gang enforcers covered in scars. Each face told a story of desperation, greed, or blind ambition. Cade kept his distance, observing the group. His hunter's instincts cataloged their strengths and weaknesses. He recognized a few faces, former rivals and allies from a time when his name carried weight. Now, he was just another contender in a game he barely understood. A sudden hum filled the air, low and resonant, and the ground trembled beneath their feet. A massive holographic figure flickered into existence above the group, its form a swirling mass of light that shifted and fractured like shattered glass. Its face was featureless, a kaleidoscope of colors that seemed to stare into each soul. "Welcome to the neon arena," it announced, its voice a metallic blend of human and machine. "You are here because you seek something greater. Wealth, freedom, redemption, all are possible if you survive." The ground split open, and the contestants stepped back as a glowing labyrinth was revealed below. Its walls pulsed with electric currents, casting jagged shadows that danced like predators. "The first challenge begins now," the figure continued. "Navigate the labyrinth and find the exit. Fail, and you will be consumed by the light." The hologram vanished, and the walls of the labyrinth began to shift, their glowing patterns intensifying. Panic erupted as contestants scrambled to find their way inside. Cade took a deep breath and stepped into the maze. The labyrinth was alive, and it knew Cade's every weakness. The walls weren't just barriers of glowing metal. They pulsed with something organic, as if they were veins carrying a malevolent force. The further Cade moved into the maze, the more he felt its presence watching, waiting, and whispering. Each step he took seemed to echo infinitely, the sound folding back on itself until it became part of the labyrinth's symphony of murmurs. The whispers weren't just noise. They were voices, familiar and alien, calling his name, asking questions he dared not answer. "Do you regret it, Cade?" one voice asked, soft and piercing. He froze. The voice wasn't generic. It was hers, Ava, the replicant he'd let escape years ago. Her voice, laced with sorrow, reverberated through the corridor. His throat tightened. Ava had been more than a target. She had been real, more real than any human he'd ever known. "You left me, Cade," Ava's voice said, now tinged with accusation. "You saved me, but you didn't stay." "I couldn't stay," he whispered aloud, though no one was there to hear him. "You know that." The corridor ahead shimmered, and the walls began to ripple as if made of liquid light. A shadow emerged her shadow. Ava's form appeared, her golden eyes glowing faintly in the neon haze. She reached out, her movements fluid and hypnotic. "Turn back," she pleaded, her voice echoing like a hymn. "There's nothing for you here." Cade stepped closer, but as he reached out, the corridor shifted violently. The image of Ava dissolved into a cascade of jagged patterns, and the floor split beneath him. He fell into darkness. When he landed, the air was heavy, suffocating. This section of the labyrinth was different, darker, colder, and filled with a low, resonant hum. The walls were no longer smooth, but covered in black, pulsating veins. They seemed to breathe, exhaling a fetid mist. Around him were the remains of others who had failed. Some were frozen mid-step, their bodies encased in glass-like shells. Others had been reduced to ash, scattered in the corners like forgotten memories. The whispers returned, louder now. They no longer asked questions. They issued commands. Submit, obey, become. Cade emerged from the darkness into a cavernous chamber. The air was thick with the scent of burnt ozone, and at the center stood a figure cloaked in shadows. The Black Herald. It was tall, impossibly so, its elongated limbs too thin to support its weight. Its face was featureless, save for a single glowing sigil that pulsed in rhythm with the veins on the walls. As Cade stepped closer, the herald's head tilted, as if studying him. "You are marked," it said, its voice a deep resonance that filled the chamber. "The arena has chosen you." "Chosen for what?" Cade asked, his voice trembling despite himself. "To see," the herald replied. "To know." Before Cade could react, black tendrils erupted from the ground, wrapping around his legs and arms. They burned where they touched, but the pain was secondary to the overwhelming sensation of being invaded. Memories flooded his mind, memories he had buried long ago. He saw himself as a boy, running through the rain-soaked streets of Neo-Jakarta, clutching a stolen loaf of bread. He saw the faces of the replicants he had hunted, their eyes wide with fear and betrayal. And he saw Ava, reaching for him as he turned away. The herald stepped closer, its blank face inches from his own. Its voice softened, almost kind. "You cannot escape who you are, Cade Draven." The tendrils tightened, pulling him to his knees. Just as he thought he would be consumed, the chamber erupted in a blinding flash of light. When Cade awoke, he was in a massive arena surrounded by towering obelisks. The air crackled with static electricity, and the ground beneath him hummed with latent energy. Around him stood the surviving contestants, their faces pale and their eyes hollow. Above them, the holographic figure appeared once more. "Well done," it said. "You have endured the labyrinth. But survival is only the beginning." A low rumble shook the arena, and a massive door slid open. From the darkness beyond, a hulking figure stepped into the light. The executioner. It was a monstrous fusion of flesh and machinery, standing nearly 3 meters tall. Its body was encased in gleaming black armor, and its head was hidden behind a smooth, featureless mask. In its hands, it held a massive blade that hummed with neon energy, its edges sparking violently. The executioner moved with terrifying speed, cutting down contestants with brutal efficiency. Blood and sparks filled the air as bodies fell, one after another. Cade dove behind an obelisk, his heart racing. He noticed something: the obelisks were pulsing in sync with the executioner's movements. "They're controlling it," he realized. Using a piece of shattered metal, Cade struck the nearest obelisk. It sparked violently, and the executioner faltered. Encouraged, he called out to the others. "The obelisks. Take them down." The remaining contestants rallied, using whatever they could find to destroy the obelisks. As the final one crumbled, the executioner collapsed, its body convulsing before going still. Only 5 contestants remained. Their bodies were battered, their minds frayed by the arena's trials. They stood in silence as the holographic figure descended, its tone colder than ever. "You have proven resourceful," it said, "but only one can claim the prize." The ground beneath them shifted, transforming into a sprawling cityscape that mirrored Neo-Jakarta. The air shimmered with heat, and the streets were alive with shifting patterns. Each contestant was armed with a glowing blade, their objective chillingly simple: eliminate the others. Cade fought his way through the twisting streets, the environment itself turning against him. Walls shifted to trap him, and illusions of his past taunted him at every turn. In the final moments, Cade faced Silas, a former Corporeum enforcer. Silas was ruthless, his blade slicing through the air with deadly precision. "You're wasting your time," Silas sneered as their blades clashed. "Even if you win, you're just another pawn." "Maybe," Cade replied, driving his blade into Silas's chest. "But at least I'll die free." Cade stood alone in the center of the arena, bloodied and weary. The holographic figure returned, its swirling face fracturing into countless smaller lights. "Congratulations," it said. "You have won." The ground beneath him opened, revealing a radiant core of swirling light. Cade felt himself pulled toward it, his body dissolving into energy. As the light consumed him, a familiar voice whispered in his mind, "You cannot escape who you are, Cade Draven." Elsewhere in Neo-Jakarta, a black envelope appeared on a counter, marked with a glowing red sigil. The cycle began anew.